Paul cuts open the soul as he did. Usually when you cut something open, you distribute or analyze parts. So he says, there's this thing called the Spirit and the laws of the Spirit, but I am of the flesh, sold under sin. So he separates this, the Spirit and the flesh. Then in other places, he also separates the ego from sin. He says, if I do what I do not want, I agree that the law is good. It's no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells within me that does it. You see, he's saying his deeper, persistent ego, his will toward the good and the God, is over here, and then there's this thing called sin over here. So with a knife, imagine the image of a knife just cutting down the middle of the soul and saying, this is a true difference. There is this person over here, and there is this person over here. But when he comes to sin, and this is the point, when he comes to sin, what does he do? He cuts sin right down the middle, and what does he have? More sin. And then if you take that piece of sin, imagine sin like a block on a table. And if you cut it open, what you'll have is sin. And if you take that piece and set it aside, and you cut that open, what you have is sin. And if you take the even smaller piece, and you atomize it to the smallest of the smallest, you keep cutting your sin to see what really is causing my sin. What really is the sin, my sin? Paul's point, his answer is, sin itself is sin. There is no deeper level to go. There is no meta level but you can cut. It is the sinfulness of our sin. That sin itself might be manifest for what it is and produce death. Sin, for this reason we're saying, is opposed to God. It cannot be anything but death. God, in 1 John 1:5, we're told particularly, is a God of light. In him there is no darkness at all. And as far as that metaphor is concerned, sin is darkness, as it is of itself. The darkness of darkness, the sin of sin, the death of death. There is no explanation for it except it is what it is. And in opposition to God, it cannot subsist. It cannot pertain. Sin is opposed to God. There was a Puritan, Ralph Venning, who wrote a book called The Sinfulness of Sin. And by that he meant this, was his description. God is holy, all holy, only holy, altogether holy, and always holy. And following that, he says, sin is always sinful. It's only sinful. It's altogether sinful. It's always sinful.